I want to dive deep into one tool you can apply to your life right now, because I promised you that I'm going to share a bit more about chapter 3 called You're Not Crazy, You're Just First. I want to dive deep in this because specifically I want to share some words that just might be for you in your very moment in life. Words that you can apply to your life right now as you're on your journey to becoming the person you're born to be. And I get so many questions about this concept on social media from you. You're asking me to explain what do I mean by this concept that you're not crazy, you're just first. Y'all ready? I know this is for someone and I feel it in my entire being. So let me just start by saying, if you are wondering if you are first, you are. See, when you are one of the brave ones willing to show up and live your life authentically as who you are, you're first. There's only one of you that's ever been created. There's no one else in existence quite like you. No one else quite like you. No one else with your fingerprints or with the iris of your eyes. No one else with your tongue print. Yep, we all have unique tongue prints, every single one of us. And when you live as who you were authentically created to be, not as your representative that you show up as to make everyone else happy, not as, your job title, not as who others expect or hope you to be, but as who you authentically are created to be, you are first. You are the only one that is you. And when you are first, not everyone is gonna get it. But it's the only way to live the highest, truest path to your calling. Living as the authentic you can be scary, but here's the deal, y'all. What I know for sure in leadership, in business, in relationships, and in fulfillment in life, that while authenticity alone doesn't automatically guarantee success, inauthenticity guarantees failure. Right? So I'm gonna dive into this because you can apply it to your life right now. We got some exciting giveaways coming up in a few minutes, a bunch more giveaways, which I love a good giveaway. But this one is really powerful and I know it's gonna hit home for so many of you because here's the thing, authenticity can be scary because when you're living authentically, you are first, the first to see the world the way you do, the first to have the ideas that you have, the first to experience emotions and art and beauty and vision the way that you do. And not everyone else is gonna get it because your creator made your unique set of talents and gifts and thoughts and ideas only inside of you. And see, for me, most of my life, I remember growing up and then even later in my teens and 20s, even in my 30s, I would share some of my big, bold, God-sized dreams with people around me, and they would call me words like crazy. They'd say, you're the crazy one. You're crazy for those ideas. They call me crazy or odd or different. And sometimes I would feel like I didn't fit in. And sometimes I get pretty sad about it. And when we feel like we are odd or different or don't belong, it can be sad. And one day I realized this in this aha light bulb moment, like a powerful burst. I'm not crazy, I'm just first. Those words helped me build a company that did things totally different in the beauty industry. And these words helped me keep believing in the power of my unique ideas, even when industry experts told me that they would never work. And in fact, it was by believing I'm not crazy, I'm just first, it helped me get past feelings of not being like everyone else in the beauty industry. And I was able to turn, overcoming those feelings of not being like everyone else into building one of the largest companies in that industry because I wasn't like everyone else, right? And what I want you to know is that the thing right now, the thing you might be thinking is most wrong with you is so often the thing that's most right with you. So maybe you'll know in your soul that this exactly is for you today. But if you feel like you have big ideas on your heart or that people around you might love you but just don't quite get you, it's only because God made just one of you, and I need you to hear these words right now. You're not crazy, you're just first. And while in Worthy there's 23 chapters of, tactical tools that build self-worth, I wanna share one excerpt. This is an excerpt, not the whole thing, from a poem in the book. The book is so powerful, but I felt in my soul that I have to share this with you tonight. And these words are written from my soul to yours. The poem is called, "You're Not Crazy, You're Just First." Who do you think you are? They say. Things like that aren't for people like us. Why are you going around changing, planning to leave us in the dust? Are you forgetting where you come from? Is it not good enough anymore? And just like that, the temptation to play life small feels more comfortable than before. They call you odd, strange, different for having dreams bigger than they can see because those dreams weren't given to them. They see them through fear and anxiety. And even well-intentioned people who love you to the bone can see you pursuing your dreams as a reflection of them not fulfilling their own. If people like people who are like them, hiding who you are can feel like home. But a calling unexpressed inside you leaves you feeling anguished and alone, even inside of your own home. They call you words like crazy and say, we stick together for better or for worse, but what your soul knows is you're not crazy, you're just first. The first to launch the business, to dust your dreams off of the shelf, the first to believe you're worthy of betting on yourself, the first to beat addiction, to live life sober and awake, the first to break that generational cycle that you know you're born to break. The first to start healing, the first to forgive so you'll be free, the first to love others for who they are, not for who you wish they'd be. The first to be a visionary, to dream up the screenplay that you'll write, the first to recognize your gifts and stop hiding in plain sight. The first boss in your company to say, I deal with self-doubt too. The first mom to say, no, I'm not okay, and I don't know what to do. The first in generations to love your body and celebrate it joyfully, to prove it, to know that it's a miracle in motion and what a gift it is to move it. The first to risk rejection, to speak your truth with vigor, knowing that the opposition might be big, but your creator is bigger. The first to cheer yourself on and truly believe it, not just fake it, knowing that most people won't cheer you on until after you make it. The first to stand up for the outcast and say, stop teasing, I just won't. You might be tempted to underestimate me, but let me save you some time. Don't. The first to say, yeah, you hurt me, but I'm not rejected, see? God just hid my value from you because you're not assigned to my destiny. The first to believe in your dreams, even when others might not get you, then one day love them anyways when they're bragging to people how they met you. See, when we fear we're not enough and fear even more we won't be loved, it is so tempting to shrink in size and trade in our purpose for their hugs. But when you're feeling like you don't fit in or that you never quite belong, your uniqueness is your superpower. Your truth is never wrong. And when they criticize to hold you back because your dreams aren't what they're used to, and they're afraid that you'll outgrow them, leave them behind, or that they'll lose you, stop asking for their advice if they've never been there themselves. Because when you people please for others, you end up betraying yourself. So when doubt tempts you to dim your light, always remember this verse. Your soul knows you are made for more, with so much purpose it could burst. You're born with greatness inside of you, and whether it's a blessing or a curse, the world won't be better until your greatness is dispersed. See, there's only one of you in the entire universe, and your knowing knows you're not crazy, you're just first.
When you said, I found comfort in knowledge that being underestimated can be a superpower. It sounds really great, right? Like we both have had experiences where we can now look back and say, oh, you just got to go, you got to push, you just got to believe it. What do you tell again, that mom that may be home folding the laundry, or that guy that's, just got a divorce and is feeling on the down and out, how would you tell them to believe it? Like, even though someone's told you no, or even though you're in that struggle, like, believe it.
Right. So I think the very first thing is knowing and believing that, like, every one of us has this person I believe we're all born to be. And I think most people never actually become that person. I think most people end up, for a lot of reasons, staying in their comfort zone, almost letting it chip away at their soul, because I think that's what happens when we stay in our comfort zone, and also like talking themselves out of their own truth, right? And I think the very first thing in order to believe that people need to do is make the decision they want to, right? That's the most important, because a lot of people will never make the decision that they want to learn how to believe in themselves, that they want to learn how to believe it's possible to step into all of who they're born to be. And I think that, there's a lot of lessons I've learned that now I really share as tips in the book on how to do this, because I think we're all on a journey. Once we decide, you're like, yeah, I want to, become the person I was born to be step into all of who I am, then there's a lot of, it's a journey, a lot of things we need to do. So, one quick story, and then some tips on what to do for that is, on underestimated is, for me, I feel like I've always been underestimated for whatever reason. And I think sometimes when we're kind to other people, we instantly are underestimated. I think sometimes, you know what I mean? And I think that, one moment, for example, and I think you can use people's underestimation as fuel. And I think sometimes it becomes 360, and it really works as grace in your own journey. And some people might say, a lot of people say, oh, well, things happen for a reason, or the universe is always right, or God always knows what he's doing. And there's a lot of, if you're someone that's always underestimated, I don't think it's an accident. I think that it's actually supposed to be part of who you are on your own journey, and the things that you become strong enough to overcome and smart enough to overcome, right? And one example is, this was before our launch on QVC. We're a few years into this company. I'd started in my living room, thought it was going to be, great. And meanwhile, we got down to under $1,000 in our bank account, which was our personal and our business bank account. I don't know, Sean, if you've ever, I would go to the ATM if I needed $20, and I'd hit no receipt, right? I couldn't stomach seeing the receipt. And,
yes.
Right. And we finally got this call that I thought was life-changing from a potential investor, private equity company. And they loved our product. And I was like, oh my gosh, Sean, this is going to be huge, because this particular private equity company had created, or I should say invested in and built a lot of the products we buy at the grocery store. And they turned in a lot of consumer products from unknown into big household names, huge companies. I was like, oh my gosh, if they invest in us, A, we're not going to go bankrupt. B, what if they can use their leverage to get us into all these retail stores that are saying no? I was so excited. And so we started doing meetings with them, and meeting after meeting, we started the diligence phase, which is when we show them all of our projections and the future products we want to launch and all that stuff. And I remember the final meeting, and I thought this is going to be life-changing. My husband and I flew up to this meeting, and we were standing 3 feet from the head guy. And he said to me, we really love your product. And we want to thank you for everything, but it's a no. We're going to pass on investing in your company. And I said, and I was so used to hearing no at that point, right? So I was like, okay, but can you share why? And because feedback's usually a gift. And
right.
And he was literally 3 feet from me, and he says, do you want me to be honest with you? And I said, yes, please. And then he literally looked at me and he said, I just don't think women are going to buy makeup from someone who looks like you, with your body and your weight. And I remember as he was saying this to me, I remember I felt my whole body flood with a lifetime of body doubt and self-doubt. And it was so weird, because I didn't get mad or even hurt in that moment. I felt this crazy feeling of my own fear staring back at me, first of all, as he was talking. And I felt this deep feeling, this deep knowing, I should call it, that he's wrong. But I also knew if I was ever going to prove that, I would need to figure out how to believe it for myself, right? Because that's literally half of it. And I thanked him for his time, for his honest advice. And here's what happened in that moment. And by the way, I think this is the defining thing for so many people out there dealing with rejections and how to handle them. Our human nature, our humanness wants to go to a victim mentality, anger, all those things. Like, oh, F him, what a jerk, like all those things, right? But it was like, of all the things I did wrong, this is one of the things I did right, where I was like, oh my gosh, it hit me. He was passing on investing in our company because of my weight. I was like, wow, he is as much of a byproduct of the beauty industry his whole life as I am, right? It's like, wow, he's making business decisions because in his whole life, he's just seen one type of beauty on TV or in magazines, and he doesn't believe any other way will make him money. And I realized this why is so deep. It's so powerful. Like, not just, oh, let me create products that work. It's like, and by the way, oh my gosh, I'll go off on this for an hour, but so many people, because I've seen so many people fail, right, in their businesses. And I feel like it's because they create their mission, their why, and it just sounds good. Like in this case, my why could have been like, oh, I want to solve my own skin problems and I want to help other women and other people and other men and other people that are the same. And that would be a great why, and it would sound really good. But it wouldn't have been deep enough to keep me going in all those hard years. And a lot of people have these whys that sound great, like, oh, I want to pay for my kid's school one day, or I want to buy a house. And like, those are great. And if you tell someone else that why, they'll think you're amazing. But literally, it's not deep enough to the core of pain inside of you that's going to keep you going during all the hard times that face most of us, right? So like in that moment, he was obviously completely underestimating me. I also knew I'm also underestimating myself and I have to figure out not to. But I turned it into like fuel for that like deep why, like the real why I needed to keep going. And here's the crazy thing about when we trust ourselves and we learn to hear ourselves and trust ourselves, which is like half of my book on how I figured out for me how to do that in a lot of cases and how other people can as well. But like when we believe and trust, whether it's in the universe, whether it's in a power greater than ourselves, for me, faith's a big deal. I believe stuff's divinely orchestrated in my life. And so many times these huge, painful rejections or setbacks or no's like suck in the time and they're devastating and they don't make sense and they're not fair. But like years later, right, we can look back on them and be like, oh my gosh, that was grace. Because had this dude said yes to me at that time, Sean, I was so desperate. I would have been like, take most of the company for like anything, just help us survive. And it's like, instead, because of so many people rejected me, I couldn't even give my company away for a little bit of money for so many years. And then by the time, fast forward many years, and we did bring on some investors toward the end, but fast forward to 2016, when L'Oreal bought our company, I was still the largest shareholder. And that changed my life, right? And had he said yes to me back then, like, who knows what I'd end up owning. And the day, and by the way, we met with L'Oreal for 3 years. I was really hoping to partner with them because I was like, oh, they could take our vision and scale it globally really quickly. But they said no for 3 years. And when it eventually was a yes, L'Oreal announced that it was their largest acquisition in US history, and it was this all cash deal and this big thing. And I got an email from that guy, from that investor, the day of the deal, because it went on the Wall Street Journal online, the homepage and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And he said, congratulations on your deal. I was wrong. And also I learned it would have been the most successful investment in his company's history had he said yes, right? But he underestimated me.
You talk about your why running deep, right? And it sounds good. But I think you proved that when it wasn't just about you. I mean, when
he was saying
no, like not everyone looks like the person on the cover of a magazine or a beauty magazine. Not everyone looks like that. So and I would be bold enough to say that I believe that that's maybe 10% of the population. So you're excluding 90% of the population because of what you think beauty is, but not really going to the person that maybe they have beauty inside of them and this is what's going to bring them out. And so, I just really want to commend you on not just having something that sounded good, but it made you like help other people feel good. And you said something earlier about what you were born to be. And I know that this subject it was very emotional in the book. And, as a person that never met their biological father before, you also transcended finding out a secret that would devastate most. And you, again, had to believe it and believe in yourself. And I think you know what I'm talking about. Can you just share just a little bit of that?
Thank you. Yeah. And really fast, one thing you asked me earlier, I just realized I forgot to, you said for people in that moment when they're shaking and how do I get through this? What did you do? What was your mindset? It's exactly what you just said. Like I forgot to answer you. So just to share it really quick in case it's of value. In that moment, when I'm shaking on live TV and I feel like everything's on the line, exactly what you just said, Sean, I knew it can't be about me or I'm effed. I'm done. Because literally, if you want the real truth, I was wearing double Spanx at the time. I'm like, my dress feels tight. Is my Spanx absorbing all my sweat dripping down because I'm freaking out? That's what's going on in my head, right? And if I stay, there's that famous saying, if you stay in your head, you're dead, right? I knew this is not about me or I'm going to fail. And it was like in that moment, that's when you dig deep and you call on your why. It's like, oh, this is like for every person out there watching who deserves to see who deserves to see me calling real people beautiful and meaning it. Like that's what it was about. And so in that moment, the only way I got through it and didn't fail was like, I had to make it not about me. It had to be about something so much bigger than me. It was just too much pressure to handle. I think I couldn't have made it through, let alone connected in an authentic way where people are going to keep their channel on me, not turn it off, and consider buying the product, right? And that's the thing and that's the other thing is your mission has to be so authentic, because had I shown up with this why that was great, but not like the deep core, I don't think people would have connected the same way. And anyways, so I go deep in the book on some personal stuff. I would say 95% of this book I've never shared are stories and lessons I've never shared before.
How do you believe in yourself, especially in a moment like right now where the future is right in front of you and it is swirling with endings and with beginnings? That's always how I feel in the summer, right? Summer is supposed to be this awesome time where we relax, we dial it down. If you're lucky and you can get to the beach, that's fantastic, or a pool. But when I'm at the beach, you know what I'm thinking about? My freaking future and the endings and the beginnings. And today, I want to throw how you believe in yourself in the middle of all these endings and beginnings. And how do you believe in yourself when you haven't even started taking the actions? How do you believe in yourself when you don't know how this thing is going to turn out that you really want to do? Well, my guest today, she's a super close friend of mine. And she is somebody you want to hear from right now. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about none other than Jamie Kern Lima. She's the founder of It Cosmetics, which she started in her living room, and she sold it to L'Oreal for $1 billion. And here's the thing that I love about Jamie. Jamie is the queen of learning how to believe in yourself, because when she started It Cosmetics, she was not some influencer with daddy's money. No. She didn't get a degree in how to start a company. She was a waitress at Denny's with terrible skin rosacea, like the bright pink kind of breakouts all over her cheeks. And it was that rosacea and that hardworking work ethic from being a Denny's waitress that made her create her own foundation. And that was the beginning of this $1 billion company that she created in her living room, It Cosmetics. And I know you're going to love hearing from her, which is why I am so excited that you're here to talk to us about your journey. You are one of my favorite human beings of all time. I cannot thank you enough, Jamie, for being here as my friend and for being here as the professor on the topic of purpose and learning how to believe in yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big, warm Mel Robbins podcast welcome to Jamie Kern Lima.
Mel, thank you. Thank you for having me. This is going to be fun and real and raw, and I can't wait. And I hope it just adds so much value to everyone listening. So I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
There's no question, because you have those friends in your life that you don't see very often.
Mm.
But every time you do, it's like no time has disappeared, and you just have this like kind of twinkle on your skin because you just love being with this person. I love you so much, Jamie. I'm actually mad at you that you live so far away from me. So maybe we should just start right there.
I love you. Thank you. I feel the very same way. And one of the things I want to share, I know we're going to dive in deep on purpose. By the way, I love Purpose Professor. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it, because it's one of our biggest life questions. How do I find my purpose? But I just want to say, Mel, something really important to me that I didn't want to leave here without saying. You can edit this out if you don't like it, but everybody listening needs to know this. You are one of the rare human beings that is the same off air, behind the scenes, in your everyday life as you are in all the public things. You know what I mean? And you and I have both met so many celebrities and so many people with millions and millions of followers, and it's very rare they're the same. And one of the things I love so much about you is you are even more funny, even more intelligent and brilliant and kind and raw and real in real life. So that congruency is like 1 in a billion. And I love you, and I'm just grateful to be here for you.
Wow. Okay.
Just that.
I think the episode's over now. No, we got to go back in time because, I think one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is because the entire mission of this show is to empower and inspire you listening to us right now to create a better life, whatever that means for you, to take the simple steps that sometimes feel impossible to pursue your dreams, to improve your health, to create greater connections, to believe in yourself. And Jamie truly is not only the professor of purpose, but her life story is a demonstration
Mm.
in cultivating belief in your ideas, belief in your intuition, belief in God, belief that things will turn out. And so I want to go back in time because, I've heard you on the stages that you speak around the world talk about how you started as a waitress in Denny's,
Mhm.
and then from waitressing at Denny's pursued a dream that you had of being on television.
Mhm.
And as a fellow former waitress, I would love to start there.
Mm. Yeah, waitress at Denny's, full uniform, name tag to prove
Oh,
it.
I forgot they had uniforms.
Full uniform.
What was your favorite thing on the menu?
Oh gosh, I love the pancakes. You know what? Just like simple. It's so funny how our steps are ordered, I think, in life.
Mm.
And so often, I remember being a waitress at Denny's. I remember feeling, and maybe someone listening to us can relate to this right now. You have this feeling inside of you like there's something more I'm supposed to do, but you don't know what it is yet. And you doubt it might be possible. And I remember being waitress at Denny's and just feeling like I have these big dreams, but not quite knowing like how do I believe I'm worthy of them yet. And it was this big season in my life. At the same time, Mel, the kitchen at the Denny's I worked at was a disaster. Like they would take an hour to get pancakes out.
Huh.
So I learned to talk to people so that they wouldn't leave. They often did leave. Or they'd throw like a dime and a penny on the table and leave.
As your tip, as if it's your fault
Yeah,
that the food were.
exactly. But it's so funny how, years later when I ended up launching my own business, I'm like, oh, I've got to get the operations right or nothing else matters. It's just those little things we learn along the way. But yeah, after that, I thought my whole life I would have a talk show. I watched Oprah in my living room growing up, so I thought for sure I would share other people's stories with the world. So I went into, did all the jobs, saved up all my money to pay for school, and push grocery carts in the grocery parking lot, sliced meat in the deli. all those fun jobs, and then found myself in what I thought was my dream job, working in TV news. And I thought, this is it, right? And what I didn't realize was I was about to enter this huge season of setback in my life, of self doubt. I have a skin condition called rosacea. And for me, it started getting really red, really bumpy. And I would be anchoring the news live, thinking, like, okay, this is it, this is it. And I started hearing in my earpiece from my producer, there's something on your face, there's something on your face. You
Oh
need
my
to wipe it
God.
off. You need to, and I was live on television, right? And I would glance down during the commercial break and I saw, oh, the makeup is breaking up on my face and these big red bumps are coming through. And it started this season that felt like setback. But so often in life, the seasons that feel like setbacks are actually setups for what we're called to do.
Okay, stop right there. Did you hear that? The seasons of your life that are setbacks are often setups for what you're called to do. I want to just make sure everybody heard that. And I want to take a highlighter and also highlight something that you said about being a waitress at Denny's. And it's this: you said our steps are ordered.
Mhm.
So, can you explain what that means, particularly to somebody who's listening
Yeah.
who may feel like, I know I'm meant for something greater.
Yes.
Why the hell am I at this step? And this does not feel like it is like on the path of where I'm supposed to go. So,
Mm,
what do you mean by the fact that our steps are ordered?
yeah. I believe, everything in life
Yep.
is happening for us, even when it doesn't make sense.
Ugh. Can
Um,
we just, what do you mean happening for us?
I
So, to
think,
somebody that's like really in it, Jamie,
yes, yes.
what does that mean?
Let me frame it around our topic of purpose, right?
Okay.
So often people feel empty because they feel like, oh, my purpose needs to be some job. It needs to be my job, or it needs to be this grand thing I haven't figured out yet. But for those of us that have accomplished a goal we always dreamed of, we get to it and we're like, oh, this isn't it, right? It's never, in my opinion, purpose is never this big goal necessarily. Purpose is so often when we're able to serve the person we once were, or serve in a way for something we've gone through. And here's what I mean. uh, I think our purpose can be like, oh, wow, I went through a really freaking hard season in my
Mm,
life. And I now am actually realizing I'm born to be a generational cycle breaker in my
mm,
family.
mm-hmm.
That is an incredible purpose, right? Purpose can be like, oh, I've been having a hard season for a long time. And when I actually just take a minute and say hi to someone else who's lonely, maybe it's like in the coffee line at Starbucks, maybe it's the neighbor down the street, whatever it is, you feel in your gut a sense of fulfillment, like a sense of alignment when you're doing something in your purpose.
Mm.
And I think that the big mistake people make is they think it's this end goal, right? A lot of times when people hear my story and they hear the, oh, Denny's waitress builds $1 billion company, they think my purpose was to be some big entrepreneur.
It wasn't?
It wasn't.
What was it?
In the journey of how I did it,
Yeah.
I took this massive risk, right? Taking my makeup off on national television when I was told not to, and being brave enough to be seen, and
Mm.
helping other women realize that they're worthy and enough exactly as they are, seeing them as who they are. To me, that is my purpose. And in doing that, it just a byproduct of that with It Cosmetics is we built a company with millions and millions and millions and millions of customers. And what's wild is 5% of our customers actually have skin issues, like I do. 95% don't. It's just that they felt seen and connected with something that spoke to their soul, right? For me, being willing to say, here I am exactly as I am, no makeup, and, all my skin issues. Um, I think people connected with that feeling of, oh, I'm enough exactly as I am.
You know what else I think is a really important part of your story? It is waitressing.
Yeah.
It's pushing carts in a supermarket.
Yeah.
It's working in the back house of a restaurant. That's
Yes.
my story too. Helping my best friend on her paper route, bussing tables. And I think when you work in retail or you work in a service job,
Yeah.
and you feel at times invisible, you start to realize how important it is to treat everybody with respect and kindness, that
Yes.
there is no work that is beneath you. And when you can bring that level of service to the job that you have right now, even if you hate it, even if people treat you like garbage, even if the back of the house is not getting those pancakes out on time and
Yes.
people are angry, if you can bring a sense of grace and service and just humility to those roles, I think it changes how you show up when things start working out, because you don't ever forget what it's like to be treated like shit
Yes.
because somebody was mad that their pancakes weren't out on time.
Yes. Yes. And also, you and I have had this experience where we've truly gotten to see and be almost every type of person in every
Yeah.
type of environment. And so now it's like, whether it's me building a business or you building one of the top shows in the world, one of the top shows in the world, I feel part of that was like, oh, we understand who's listening and watching you right
Yes.
now. I
Yes.
understand who real people are who built, who bought my products.
Yeah.
And so when you mention steps are ordered, it's like, no matter where you are in your life right now, what you're going through, I believe every piece of it, whether it's, oh, someone just, cut me off in a parking lot and screamed at me, or, oh, whatever it might be you're going through, all of those things are happening for you, I believe,
I love
so
that.
that you're amassing this toolbox of understanding and getting strong enough and equipped enough for the purpose you step into.
Amazing. So, Professor of Purpose, Jamie Kern Lima, right there. That's your takeaway number one. The steps are ordered. Believe in that.
Mm,
And this moment is helping you, it's giving you something. So, that is one major tool that you used along the way. Let's go back to that moment, because I think you were 28 years old, right?
mhm.
When you're sitting on television in Seattle.
Yeah.
You are a local news anchor, you're living the dream, you're on your way, and you are now starting to have this nightmare happen
Yes.
where your rosacea is breaking through on camera in front of everybody
Yeah.
the makeup that they put on you.
Yes.
And you've got people in your ear telling you there's something wrong with your face.
Yes.
And you're realizing, holy cow, the makeup that they've put on my face cannot cover the rosacea and the skin issues that I have. So,
Yeah.
what do you do in that moment?
Well, the first thing I did was start freaking out, right? And I like literally I started entering this season of self-doubt where I would be live on the air, anchoring the news, thinking thoughts in my head like, "Oh, am I going to get fired? Are viewers changing the channel right now? Like, am I costing the company ratings?" Right? So it was this
Could you
big.
feel those moments when you could feel like the makeup not kind of like disappearing? Like, there were moments when I used to be a commentator for CNN, I was premenopausal, where I could feel the hot flash coming.
Yeah. I didn't feel it until they said it in my ear and in my
Oh.
earpiece. And then what would start to happen was I would get so nervous and stressed out because I kept trying to cover it during commercial breaks. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. So what I remember is like anchoring the news live, and sometimes you have to be happy, tell this happy story, or you're serious telling. And I just remember my heart beating in my ears, hoping people weren't changing the channel.
Oh
And
my
and
God.
it started this thing where I would spend what it's funny, I was anchoring the news, and people think when you're doing that, you must have all this money, but you really don't get paid much at all, and I
No.
took my little paycheck that I had and started spending it on, department store makeup, professional artistry makeup, drugstore makeup. I couldn't find anything that worked, and I had this idea one day, like, "Oh, if I can't find anything that works for me, there's probably a whole lot of other people out there that feel like makeup doesn't work for them." And it was sort of this idea where I was like, if I could
Mm.
figure out how to make something that worked for me, it helped a whole lot of people. And that was my knowing, or this gut feeling. But then my head, Mel, was like, oh, but you got no money, you got no connections, no one in the beauty industry, you're unqualified. So I sat in this place, right? And we're talking about purpose. I had this gut feeling like I was supposed to go for this thing, but then my head was like, oh, but here's all the reasons why you're not qualified to do it. Plus, you're in your dream job, right? And I sat between those two. And it wasn't until I had this big aha moment of why I needed to do it that pushed me over the edge.
Okay, so what is the aha moment?
Yeah, so I realized one day, I'm like, this makes no sense. There are thousands of makeup companies out there. How does nothing work for me, right? Then I had this moment where I realized I've never seen a model with bright red, bumpy skin saying, selling makeup. Like you always see these photoshopped, airbrushed
Yeah.
models. And I realized, Mel, like, wow, my whole life, I've actually loved those beauty commercials and I love seeing the magazines and I always aspired to look like them, but deep down inside, they always made me feel like I wasn't enough.
Mm.
And I had this moment. I was literally on the news set when this happened, where I was like, wait a minute. What if it's not just about launching a makeup product? Like what if I could actually figure out how to do it, which I had no idea how, and I had no money. It was like, what if I could actually launch a product that works for me? And what if I actually put real people as models, like every age, shape, size, skin tone, skin challenge? What if I use them as models, call them beautiful, and mean it for every little kid out there who's about to start doubting themselves and every grown woman who still does, and that deep source of pain from how I was feeling not enough and what could I do about it? That, in my opinion, is one of the strongest ways to find your purpose. It's what has just destroyed you or hurt you that you've maybe made it through,
Yeah.
and how can you now use that making it through to help someone who's going through it?
Okay. That's like a mic drop moment from our professor of purpose, Jamie Kern Lima. So again, I like to unpack these things to make
Yeah.
sure this is a I always say this is not just a listening podcast, it's a doing podcast. And I want to make sure nobody's left behind.
Yes.
And there was billions of dollars worth of wisdom that you just dropped. And so I want to try to unpack it for anybody that is listening to this and you have this sense that you're made for more.
Yes.
So one of the things that I heard is look in your life and see what problems or frustrations or things that you're struggling with that feel like a setback. And Jamie gave you the example of the rosacea on her skin and her inability to find something that actually could help her solve this issue of being able to cover it up so that she could do her dream job. And that setback is a setup for something new. And then get out of your own sort of selfish or self loathing or the self excuses and the self pity and remind yourself that there are 8 billion people on this planet now. There are other people that are dealing with this.
Yeah.
And that if you can figure out how to put your energy into making this better for yourself and you bring other people into the fold with you, you now have something that's worth working on because it helps you and it's going to help other people. And I also want to point something out that Jamie will not tell you, but I sure as hell will. And that is that this was about 14 or 15 years ago. So we're talking 2007, 2008, correct?
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, Jamie Kern Lima is the reason why we have this real beauty movement. There always has to be the first person, and she was it. So when you look around the internet and social media and you see people doing naked faces, that was not something people did in 2007. It was all airbrush. It was all perfection. That was the beauty standard. There were no plus size or curvy models. That was not a thing back then. And so you've got a woman who is sitting in Seattle, who has no experience and no money, deciding that she is going to not only figure out how to create a makeup line for people who have issues with their skin, but that she's going to do something nobody has ever done, which is put real, normal people like you and me into her campaigns when she finally gets this figured out. And she's going to show people what her skin actually looks like in order to sell it. I mean, that was a revolutionary idea. She was the first. And I'm telling you this because you could be the first. You have something inside of you that is a problem, something that you can solve. And you could be the first to change the way that people think about an issue. And so, Jamie, let's pick up the story because how do you go from this aha moment, like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, to doing something. Because I
Yes.
think some of us have aha moments, right?
Yep. And then we
But we
doubt
don't
him.
do anything.
Yes, because we doubt him. We
Yes.
doubt him. We think like, oh, someone's already done it.
Yes.
Or oh, whatever. First of all, if you're out there right now and you think, oh, you have an idea or a way you want to show up in the world or someone else you want to help, but you think, oh, someone's already done it. Literally, there's only one of you in the entire universe, which by definition means no one has ever done it the way you're going to do it. So when I launched this,
Say that again, Jamie, for the people that are like, whoa, 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 kids, calm down. Wait, Jamie just said something. I was doing my dishes. Say that again. Talk about the fact that this matters.
this is huge because I think the biggest reason we talk ourselves out of things is we think, oh, someone's already done it.
Yes.
Someone's already done it before, who must be smarter than me or more talented or more whatever it is than me. And what I have learned and then proven, and I want to tell you too about I'm going to get so excited, Mel, because no, when you do this thing, like don't be shocked then when there's millions and millions of rejections and people don't get it, right? Because it's never been done before, right?
Oh, yes.
Because there's only one of you. There's only one of you doing it the way you're going to do it. But just to recap that, there is literally only one of you in the entire universe, right? And so if you are going to show up to this world authentic, that means whatever you do, if it's authentic to you, it's actually by definition, it's never been done before, right? And so when you show up that way, don't be surprised if not everyone gets it right away. Or, in my case, all the experts I put on pedestals all said no. That this idea of how I wanted to connect with women, they thought it wouldn't work and they thought I wouldn't therefore make them any money.
But can I ask you a question real quick? How did you go from the aha
Yes.
to starting? So what did
Yes.
that look like? Like, because I think like if you're in this space where, let's just use an example. You've never actually, you don't know the first, you have this thing about catering that you
Yep.
just can't get it out of your head. You want to do these events, you've never actually done this because you had never
Yes.
done anything with makeup. You had
Yep.
no idea what you were doing.
Yep.
You have an idea and you have an aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
What was the first thing that you did to start to make this real?
So leaning on that, why I had to do it and why it felt like it was going to be part of my purpose was a big thing that helped me actually take the risk, quit my job.
Wait, you
And
quit your job because you had an aha moment?
yeah, it was deep. I was like, if I had
What did it feel like?
it felt like if I didn't do it, I would wake up the rest of my life with this pain in my gut, this longing, knowing I was created for more. It felt like if I didn't do it, I would have the pain of regret. And if I did do it, I might have the pain of failure and maybe the pain of embarrassment and then maybe the pain of, oh, wow, that doesn't feel like it went how I thought it was. I knew it was this big risk. I
Yeah.
knew I was leaving what I thought was my dream job.
Why did you have to quit your job? Just curious.
It was literally from day one, I was all in. Like I dove all in. I knew if I was going to do this, I needed to just go all in on it. I started, I do not recommend this, but I started working like 100-hour weeks from the beginning. I was so freaking passionate about it. Like I couldn't stop thinking about what if I can actually figure this out? What if I can literally, because it became a big
So did you have
dream.
any savings? Like, do you have a little bit of
Very
savings?
little
Because you didn't
savings.
pay yourself for the first 3 years that you did this.
First 3 years. So basically, my husband and I wrote this business plan, right?
Yep.
Quit our jobs, dove all in our living room. We poured all of our savings into it. I thought, Mel, and this is for someone watching us right now. I know this. I thought if I can figure the product out, it's going to be huge.
Right.
And then I realized, like, oh, being an entrepreneur or launching a dream is not always that easy. We poured every penny we had into it, and once we actually created a product, and we were scrappy. If you
And
want to know
how did you create a product? Like, are you in your kitchen buying stuff at the grocery store, or how does this even work?
Okay, so no, so first, I love that technology is right there, right? So researching how are makeup formulations made, who makes them, what are the FDA regulatory compliance, all the unsexy stuff I know nothing about. Just diving into the research phase of how does this happen, and then what I learned is that manufacturers our makeup company's closest held secrets, right? Like closest held secrets. They won't disclose who they work with, but a
Hmm.
lot of these big manufacturers work with all the top brands that you see, or a handful of them.
Gotcha.
So I
So,
started.
so are you saying that all of the brands and top brands that you see are basically manufactured by a handful of companies?
Yes,
Okay,
handful of
got it.
companies, and then some do it in-house as well.
Gotcha.
So what I did was scrappy. I walked into a Sephora. I wrote down the name of every single brand in there, went home. I had no money, right? Cold call every single brand and saying like, "Oh, I'm looking for a really great manufacturer. Could you let me know who you manufacture?" And then they hang up on me. You know what I mean? One after another, after another, after another. And I got this really small brand in a totally different kind of positioning, where the girl who answered said, "Oh, here's who we use. They're in New York City, blah, blah, blah." So that was my first manufacturer. Reached out to them, had a meeting in person, had no money, poured this idea out to them. They took a risk making me samples. And that's how it started, was just really being scrappy, and trying to figure it out. All of our money had went into the product development formula and the
Yep.
advisory board of the product.
Yep.
And I thought, okay, now we have a product that works for me, right? This was after hundreds of formula iterations. I thought that was going to be it.
So is this like year one or year two? Like how long did this take?
Yeah, it took a good first year to
Okay.
get that product. And then what I started doing was sending it to everyone I thought was just going to believe in me instantly. So I sent it to Sephora and Ulta Beauty and all the department stores and all of the online retailers, QVC, which is, live television shopping channel. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be huge. Every single one of them said no after no after no after no. And to your point, it became 3 years of not being able to pay myself, 3 years of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of no's, of crying myself to sleep at night.
Were you and your
Um,
husband like fighting like crazy? Like you should go back to work. You should, but why do we do that? Like, were you like doing
you
that?
you want to know what it was?
Yeah.
We still believed in it, but we weren't sure how we were going to make it. It was like friends and family that were like, wait, you quit your job? Are you sure you should have quit your job? Or wait, you still haven't made any money? Like it's been 3 years, right?" So you hear all of this, the voices get so loud.
Yeah.
The loudest, though, were my own self-doubt. Sometimes we take a chance and go for something because our gut is telling us to do it. And then all of a sudden you face all this opposition and you start to question, is my gut wrong? Is my knowing wrong? And there were so many times where I would literally get this another brutal no from, Sephora or QVC or whoever it was. And I would just literally cry myself to sleep. I would pray about it and be like, "God, I feel like I'm supposed to be doing this, but nothing is going right."
Shayla Atkins asked another question, which I think is so great. She's a big fan as well. And what she's interested in is, obviously you've worked very hard. It is now this incredible brand, like you said, #1 luxury cosmetic brand in the country, all of those things. But you're a mom, you're a human being, all of those things. Shayla's like, how does she stay grounded? How does she still stay true to herself? As these big things are happening for you, how do you stay grounded? How do you stay true to Jamie?
Yeah. I think that, yeah, it's been a wild journey. Like in the days where I was a waitress at Denny's, I don't know if I could have ever imagined some of the stuff that I've gone through in the past couple of years
Right.
happening. Um, I stay grounded in my faith, and
Yeah.
I believe a couple of things. I believe all of us are on this earth not to achieve things or get significance or accomplish things. I think we're here to compete with only who the person God made us capable of becoming
Mm.
is. And I stay grounded in my faith, and I try to listen to that still small voice inside and trust it. And what I mean by that is a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now, I had this huge moment, Mitch. I don't think I've ever talked about this, maybe with a
Wow.
friend, but
Yeah.
and because I spent years building the company in our living room, and I'll never forget our first office. And we outgrew it so fast, but everyone's desks became like, if you got hired as a new employee, we would take a huge FedEx box or UPS box. That was your desk because we were out of space.
Congratulations, right?
Yes,
Exactly.
welcome to It Cosmetics. It was so scrappy for so long. And we eventually moved into bigger offices and bigger offices. And about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we had just moved into a 60,000 square foot office.
Wow.
I had this moment where I was sitting there, and you know, L'Oreal acquired us in 2016, and I stayed on as CEO and doubled the size of the company the first 2 years post acquisition. Just poured my heart into it because I believe in our mission. I believe in everything L'Oreal is doing and the It Cosmetics team is doing, and just poured my heart and soul. And there was this moment where I was sitting in my brand new office in looking around at what the world tells me success and significance are. It was like this corner office overlooking the skyline of Manhattan. It looks like something I grew up seeing only in movies,
Right.
with the most beautiful art everywhere. And this, like, my corner office is bigger than almost any place I've ever lived in, right? And I'm sitting there, no, really. And I'm sitting there, and I have a moment. I just want to share this with anyone listening. I have this moment where I feel, this is how I hear God. I feel like I'm done. Like all of a sudden it was all there, and it was a brand new office, right? And I knew if I stayed, I love the team. I love the team so much. But everything's a well-oiled machine now.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I could stay and have the glamorous parts of everything, have the big office, have all the stuff, the biggest brand in the country. And I just felt this calling, like this calling on my heart that says, you're supposed to serve in a whole different way now. And, you know, I'd said no to writing a book for years because I didn't want to ghostwrite. I wanted to write every word myself if I was ever going to do it. And I just had this feeling like you're supposed, now that you've gotten to this spot and you have all the fancy stuff now, if you stay in that, it could come at the price of the calling on your life. And but I think a lot of people, we get tempted when stuff is what the world tells us matters.
Yeah.
And I made the decision. I sobbed my eyes out in that office. And I was just looking around at everything because I couldn't even believe how beautiful it was. This is the first time I ever stepped foot in this office. And I went in on a weekend all alone, and it was all done. My It Cosmetics assistant was there too with me. And I was just sobbing in there because I couldn't believe how beautiful it was. But I also knew in my heart that it was time to serve in a different way. And I made the decision to step away from this dream I'd built in my living room, because I have tried to live my whole life that way. And I think everyone listening right now, like, it comes in all different forms for us, right? It might be like stepping into a dream, stepping away from one, start again. I used this example earlier, but starting to paint again, writing the first page of your book. Like, I feel like the most important decisions in life come down to when we trust ourselves. So anyhow, that happened. And
I love that. Thank you for being generous to share that story, because, and I think that's also such a beautiful picture. That what I love, and it's been such an honor to be, you know, with Dream Think Do, we've been able to talk with so many people about their journeys. And I so appreciate you being real with us yet again, you know, in the book and then here. But I think that's a great picture too, that like, as we walk out dreams, it's so often that next thing, which some might say is the next dream, is revealed only as a part of the journey, right? Like, you wouldn't have gotten that had you not continued to walk out the journey. And so to be able to say, hey, isn't that part of the adventure too, of being able to say, I wonder what future journeys will be. I wonder what will be revealed as we step further into this thing. And so I'm getting goosebumps as you tell that story. So I'm so honored that you'd be here. I'm so honored you'd share that particular story. And I think it's going to so resonate with Dream Think Doers. So guys, we have been talking with Jamie Kern Lima.
You know, just about your faith and how your faith has driven you through all of this. I know you didn't do it alone. You've definitely had a force guiding you your whole life. It's no doubt.
Yeah.
How important was your faith in God on this journey and doing all of this, and also just living your life the way you have lived?
Yeah, I love that you say too, I share it all in the book, because it's like 95% stuff I've never shared, including my journey of faith. And for anybody, you know, listening or watching right now, if you've ever struggled with God doubt, right? Like, for decades of my life, John, I would pray and then I would feel like, maybe I'm a fraud because I don't know that I fully believe God exists. And I struggled with it. And, I mean, this was decades. And then when I went to graduate school in New York, and I was around a lot of people that had different faiths, no faith, believe only in science, and they believed only in things you could truly like see, prove, touch, for which of course faith is not required. And the more I was around all of it, it really started me second guessing everything about faith. And I share in this book for the first time what I did and what happened from there. And how I handled that, right? And there was a moment actually where, and I was raised in families that didn't go to therapy or didn't, like, you just either don't talk about it or you figure it out, right? There's a season I went through where, whole nother story in the book, finding out I was adopted by surprise in my 20s. And there were so many things that happened personally, struggling with fertility, so many things. So anyhow, I was in this season of just, feeling so down for the first time ever. And between not knowing where I came from with my parent, not knowing if God exists, I started seeing a therapist for the first time. And she said one thing to me during one of the sessions that changed my entire faith journey. And I don't even know what she believes in, no clue, by the way. I've never heard her talk about God in any of our sessions. So I said to her one day that I was doubting God exists and that all these things. And she says to me, well, why don't you tell him? I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, if God created the entire universe, what makes you think he can't handle your doubt? Tell him you doubt him and ask him to prove you wrong. Ask him to prove you wrong beyond a shadow of a doubt. And I'm like, okay. And so that started a multi-year thing where, like, I mean, let me just keep it really real because I love you, John. I'll just keep it like real. I'm just going to pretend your whole community is my friend, just like you are. And I'm just going to say it. I would literally pray and be like, I would pray for, this person's health and this and all those things. And at the end, I'd be like, and I'm doubting you exist. So if you could please prove me wrong, I would be very grateful. Like, prove me wrong, be in a shadow of a doubt. Like, can you show up somehow where I just know? Like, in Jesus' name, amen. Like those would be my prayers. And this went on for years. And stuff started happening that literally, beyond a shadow of a doubt, was God. In some cases, it was like told to me it was God. Like, and the more years that went on, the more I just grew to know beyond a shadow of a doubt, God's in control, God's time, all of these things, right? I won't share the whole story because so much of it is in the book, but the QVC host that came up to me that day and finally got a shot on QVC. So she retired after we launched, right? The one who discovered me at the expo. Many years later, she was, she had left QVC years before. We grew to be the biggest brand and number one brand. And so I was like, I have to thank her for loving our product that day. So I looked her up, I called her and I said to her, oh my gosh, thank you so much for loving our product. You changed my life. Like, can you believe we're the biggest brand in QVC's history? And she says to me, oh, honey, I do love your product, but that is not why I went up to you that day. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, I was walking that expo with thousands and thousands of women. She goes, I clearly heard God tell me to go up to you and help that girl. And she goes, and I just listened. And I'm like, whoa, right? There's so many stories like that have happened. And so and I share so much more in the book, but anyone who's going through that, who believes but doubts, right? For me, telling God I doubt him, asking him to prove me wrong has changed my entire journey of faith. And the last thing I'll say is, like, I talk about my toolbox and all of that. And just for anyone listening or watching right now who struggles with doubt a lot, right? I talk about so many tips in the book, but if you struggle with feeling like you're not qualified, or you doubt yourself, or you get distracted by what other people are doing that looks so good online and they look so successful and this and that, or someone else has launched your product, whatever it is, like, at the end of the day, if you keep checking in with yourself and feeling in your gut, this is your purpose, you're on the right track, this is your mission, one thing in my toolbox, a famous saying that I used to always pull from that really helped me every time I would just try to channel it. And every time I felt not qualified. And the famous saying, just in case someone needs to hear this right now, somebody in your community needs to hear this right now. The famous saying is, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called, right? And I would tell myself that over and over and over, because to me, it means if you're on the right track, you feel it, then I think it's part of your purpose and it's part of your calling, part of your mission. And if he doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. To me, that means you already have everything you need inside of you right now, right? To accomplish your dreams. It just comes down to believing it for yourself.
No one can keep you from what God has planned for you.
Yes.
And I got to tell you, when you were telling me the story about the woman saying that God told her to come talk to you, wow, I got goosebumps like you would not believe. Like that was, I just had a spiritual experience as you were sharing that. Goosebumps, which always happens when God is showing up saying there's something more here. This is bigger. And wow, that was powerful when you said that. Major goosebumps on that moment. So let's go from that to our final question. And I have to ask you, because I want people who are going through a tough time right now to have something practical, like a real practical tip they can take away. They just came off of 2020, which was a horrible year for many, a very challenging year. We're now into 2021. It's February. What are some tips that people can implement to make this a great year, to overcome their struggles, overcome their challenges? Just give them 3 practical little tips and takeaways of what you would recommend they do moving forward. And I think probably believe it should be one, right? But what are the other ones?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't even think of that, but yes, get Believe It, the book. I didn't even think of that, to be honest. So I would say a couple of things. I feel like, if I were to look at 2020, right, it's a year that has been filled with so much uncertainty, more uncertainty in so many ways, tough times with families who might be divided on things. It's been a tough year, people losing their jobs, so many things happening, a year of uncertainty. And so if I look back at the year, I feel like a word that I've heard so many times now is the word pivot, right? So many people are talking about pivoting because they're needing to pivot and they're needing to figure that out, or they're forced to pivot. So one thing I just want to say that I think is so important, because I think in some ways it's a bigger risk to people's dreams or businesses as they go into 2021, as they learn to I need to pivot this way and put more of my business online, or this thing or that thing, or level up my skill set. I think all of those are important. But my worry, and maybe it's more advice, one of the things that we did right, that I think most people don't do right when they're entrepreneurs, and this is my advice for going into 2021 for everybody, is once you truly understand your own mission, your own why, not just your why, but deeper, the why behind the why, and you understand that through line of authenticity through who you are and what you're doing, it is so important that you don't get distracted by the temptation to pivot because everything's uncertain. We're all in this new territory, and it looks like this must be working for someone else, or this must be working for my competitor, or this must be working for whatever. When I look back on, and do not pivot unless it aligns with your mission, because I believe pivoting can be a distraction and a temptation and a short-term thing versus a long-term win. And, being exposed to thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs now over a decade in the QVC green room, you meet everybody. The commonality between people who made it, which is 5%, and the people who were there and lasted 1 show, 2 shows, 3 shows, and they're gone, is the ones who were the same off air in the green room. And it didn't matter how they were, crazy, wild, conservative, it didn't matter. The ones who were the same behind the scenes as they were on air, because you can't fake authenticity, and they stayed to their mission, all those things on air for better or worse. Those are the ones that lasted. And over the years, I would hear from my own teams, my own employees, amazing leaders, even in our company, as we built to 1,000 employees. So many times they would send me stuff that a competitor was doing, or a big trend that was happening in the marketplace. And listen, I think it's important to be aware of all that. But what I would tell them over and over, to the point where they could repeat these words without me there, is I would say our biggest threat to our business and our success isn't the competition. It's not what the competition's doing. It's the risk of us getting distracted by it and getting tempted to have it impact and dilute our own secret sauce and our own authenticity, right? And we kept, I would disappoint buyers because they want us to do a big trend so they make more money in their stores. And I would say no. And I don't like to say, I'm a people pleaser growing up, but I learned how to say no because I knew, and disappoint them because I knew if I start doing what's trendy that's not aligned with our mission, just to make short-term money or to react in the moment or hit our numbers for the quarter or whatever it was, that's the start of disintegrating customer trust, brand loyalty, authenticity, all those things. And, I would say right now, I know everyone's really stressed out about how do I pivot? How do I do all these things? Everything's changing. I think it is more important than ever to do the work of getting still, listening, feeling it, like going deep down inside of what you're called to do and the mission that you're on. And then making the decision to weed out the temptation to do pivots that aren't aligned with that just because they're working for someone else or they're a trend or your friend said, oh my gosh, you got to do that, whatever. It's like, no, your gut is always more powerful than anyone else's advice. And so that's what I would say is a really big practical thing that's important no matter if you're an entrepreneur or a creator, or you're someone that just really wants to start a blog, or or you're being forced to pivot, even if you're forced to pivot and you don't know what you're going to do, right? It's still so critical because you don't want to miss out on becoming the person you're born to be. And it's still so critical to get that through line of authenticity and listening to your gut and what you're called to do before you make your next decision and your next steps and reacting to all of it.
So good. What a great way to finish, Jamie. That was amazing. Great advice.
So you then spent 3 years as CEO of L'Oreal. Amazing, freaking incredible. How do you now reassess, or maybe not even reassess, who you are today?
Yeah.
What you stood for? Does that still resonate? How do you evolve? Because we all have an identity, right? And so for so long, your identity was speaking out to all these women who maybe didn't have a voice, and you were finally the one that was saying, yes, we may have skin conditions. Yes, this may affect us, but we don't have to succumb to it. Yeah. So you've been like the advocate for that for so long, so powerfully. Where do you go now, and how do you assess who Jamie is today?
Yeah, I think that question is such a struggle for anybody who has been all in on something to the point where you're like burnt out. Exactly. And like you said, it almost becomes your identity. Mm-hmm. And that question, by the way, is part of why we chose to sell the business, because we did 100-hour weeks for 10 years and I cared so much, but it always comes at a price. So we grew the business to over 1,000 employees across the country, became the largest beauty brand in QVC history, and then the largest, and we got a yes from Ulta Beauty, grew to be their largest brand, finally got a yes from Sephora as well, and some department stores, and started launching internationally. And it never got easier, right? Because I used to think like, one day, right, I can afford to hire people and they're gonna help me and it's gonna be so much easier. And then what I learned is, oh my gosh, when you do hire people, especially people that are smarter than you in other areas, it is such a gift. But even if you hire the best of the best people, you still then have a new job, which is managing people and making sure they're happy and dealing with competitors trying to steal them and dealing with HR issues and this and that and it's this whole other thing, and it never got easier. And one of the things I will say that I have personally not been able to succeed at, so I could call this a failure, is I never figured out how to have any semblance of balance. And I think women especially feel this weird pressure where they're supposed to just somehow figure out balance, and I think it's a lie.
Do you seek balance though?
I have gone through times where I'm like, I need to get more balance. I just think it's a lie where you just end up feeling like you're failing all the time at everything. I think that the best you can do, the best I have figured out to do, is to try and be present in what I'm doing, and just to commit to the choices I make, because I think balance, I think it's impossible, first of all. But what I will say is everything comes at a price. And building this business and working this hard had so many great benefits. You know, we have millions and millions of customers and community that I just feel like they believe in themselves more, even if they've never bought a product. It wasn't even about that. It was them being in a community where, you know, they felt like they were enough. And so that always made it worth it to me. But the amount I pushed myself, and my husband as well, it came at a price. And for
What price was
many
that?
years, well, we spent every single holiday, anniversary, birthday in the QVC green room. We grew to doing over 250 live shows a year, and I did them all myself for 8 years. With Paulo, he was in the green room watching the numbers, figuring out the orders, figuring everything. And even when we grew to hundreds of employees, we were still working out of the QVC green room and in between shows and airings on the laptop, working on product development and doing conference calls. And it was so much. And when we grew to be really large and started launching internationally, I realized that's a lot of work to try and understand like regulatory compliance laws in Thailand and HR laws, and it's so much. And so then we thought, okay, if we partner with L'Oreal or sell our business to L'Oreal, one of the biggest blessings in all of it was that they have people on the ground in like just about every country. And so you have experts that are hyper local and understand the culture and the cultural sensitivities and the importance of, that country's regulatory compliance and all that like stuff that it's hard to figure out on your own and scale. And I knew that I needed to, I knew that if I didn't sell the company, we might go another 10 years and I might still be spending every holiday working and every birthday and every anniversary. We still didn't have kids and we had tried for 10 years. And I think sometimes stress takes such a toll on your body. And I just felt like I was an amazing entrepreneur and CEO and a terrible owner of a body and a terrible every other thing, wife, daughter, friend. I mean, I would do everything I could to help my friends and family, but except for physically be present, right? And I just kind of realized I have to make a change. And so we sold 100% of It Cosmetics to L'Oreal. It was their largest acquisition in U.S. history.
And you've been able to double it, correct?
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Isn't that crazy? So they acquired It Cosmetics 3 years ago, and the business has doubled since then. And
so, but I want to go back to the thing that you were saying about identity. So you sell the
Yes.
company. Your identity has been, I'm the hustling grind person. I'm the one that
Yes.
sacrifices. I'm the one that goes all in. You leave it, and
yeah. And it's hard, and it's great and amazing and hard. And we, so a year and a half ago, we had our first child via surrogate. Yeah, via surrogate. Her
Wonder.
name's Wonder. And, I grew up with parents that worked a lot. And so I struggle with going, okay, I really want to be there for my daughter, but my tendencies are very much, I'm just all in, and I want to, I think that idea I shared in the beginning of sort of like one day, God willing, a million years from now, when I die, I want everything used up in me that I can possibly give to be of service to other people. And that has not left me. And I just know anytime I talk with women or entrepreneurs, or I just, I feel it's so right, and that's been really fun. And, for so many years, lit agents and publishers would always reach out. And one year the movie Joy came out, and that year was the year all the screenwriters and stuff started reaching out about my story, but I was so burnt out and I didn't take a single meeting. I actually said no to every single meeting for many years because I was so burnt out. And I remember hearing Oprah once say, don't ever write an empty book. There's too many empty books out there. And when I heard that, it was like, it scared me and also was like a really powerful thing. And I thought, I'm never gonna do anything until I can be all in, present, all of that. And so I just started taking meetings now for just how can I share my story in a way that can, you know, be of service to other people. And so
anyone watching on YouTube, right this second, drop in the comments, yes, we want the book. Yes, we want the book. Yes, we want the book. We're gonna have you back for that as well. But seriously, like that book, when you're talking about having, you know, giving service and really doing it for other people, like that seems like a almost like a no-brainer next step for sure.
Yeah.
You've already done so much incredible things and impacted so many people that it's incredible and exciting to think about where you're going to go.
Yeah.
But you got to take care of yourself first. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do it.
So true. Taking care of ourselves is something for so long that even women especially just felt, and men, there was different types of stigmas, but people just felt like you were selfish if you did that. And it's not true. It's like the least selfish thing you can do because you show up your best for everyone else too. And
I actually like that you said men as well, because that's one big thing about this show is that, you know, we talk mainly about women because it's our own experiences, but you're 100% right on the fact that men, like if a man was like, yeah, I'm going to go get a massage and a pedicure and I'm going to go in the steam room, like I would hear about that way less than a woman.
Yeah.
But why wouldn't they have the same type of self-care of the vessels of their bodies?
Yes.
Like, so I'm
and
really
mental
glad that you
health
said
too,
that.
all of it.
mental
Yeah.
health.
Yeah.
What is your superpower? As I throw it in there at the end.
Yeah, I feel like my intuition's my superpower, but my biggest superpower is my faith.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock this house and welcome to the stage, Jamie Kern Lima! Baby Kern Lima!
Every single one of us has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt.